Well, good morning, Potter's House family. I'm here with another word from the Word for you for today. We're continuing Second Samuel, moving on in the life of David and the kingdom of David. And we're to the point where David is wanting to bring the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of the Lord, to Jerusalem with him. And if you remember your Old Testament history, God had given the Israelites very strict instructions on how this ark was to be handled, how it was to be moved, who was to carry it, how they were to carry it. And the whole point was representative of the glory of God, that God himself was considered to sit on the throne above it. And so it was not something to be taken lightly. It was not something to just joke around with, play around with, but it was something to follow the Lord and how he wanted them to use it and how it was to be handled. So let's hear this account in 2 Samuel chapter 6. It says this, starting in verse 5. And David and all the house of Israel were celebrating before the Lord, with songs and lyres and harps and tambourines and castanets and cymbals. And when they came to the threshing floor of Nacon, Uzzah put out his hand to the ark of God and took hold of it, for the oxen stumbled. So they've got the ark riding on this cart pulled by oxen, and they're moving along. They've got this huge celebration going on, great worship service, all the instruments clanging and banging, and they're just having a grand old time. Well, the oxen stumbled, and Uzzah puts out his hand to the ark to keep it from falling. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against Uzzah, and God struck him down there because of his error, and he died there beside the ark of God. And David was angry because the Lord had broken out against Uzzah, and that place is called Perez Uzzah to this day. And David was afraid of the Lord that day, and he said, "How can the ark of the Lord come to me?" So David was not willing to take the ark of the Lord into the city of David, but David took it aside to the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. And the ark of the Lord remained in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite 3 months, and the Lord blessed Obed-Edom and all his household. And so we see here, what were they doing? Well, the ark was supposed to be carried by priests on poles, and not put on a cart and pulled by oxen. And so the part of that was, with it being on poles, was no one touched it. Well, so when Uzzah reached out and touched it, that was breaking God's command. That was breaking God's word on how he'd instructed him to handle this thing. And so God's anger boils up against him, and he's struck dead. Well, David, who's leading this whole procession, he becomes angry. He becomes scared. He's fearful of the Lord. And I think that might have been part of God's intention all along, is we need to have a healthy reverence for God and his holiness and his perfection. We don't need to take him lightly. David, the man who God at the end of his life said, "This is a man after my own heart." David here is struggling with this, and yeah, he was wrapped up in a great worship service, but it wasn't pleasing to the Lord. Did you see that? Like, they were worshiping, they're singing, they're making music. You gotta know they're just feeling it, right? But their worship wasn't pleasing to God at all, because it wasn't following his commands. It wasn't worshiping him in obedience. And so he struck this guy down. So the challenge for us would be this. Let's try to follow the Lord in obedience. But let's try to follow the Lord in obedience, especially in our worship. That it's not all about emotion. It's not all about the feels. It's not all about the music. It's not about the quality of the music or lack thereof. But it's about faithfully coming to the Lord in reverence and obedience and getting to praise and worship him. Now, there's nothing wrong with the emotion being involved. It should. There's nothing wrong with the instruments being involved. They should. There's nothing wrong with any of that, because what we're going to see next is how once they got it right, it was an even better and purer worship service before the Lord as this thing went on in the right way. But we'll look at that tomorrow. That's your word from the Word for today, and I will see you again tomorrow. Bye for now.